Alright everyone, this is Friday's video on Celtic AM and we are now firmly in the mood for Celtic versus Hearts, a game it feels like we've been building ahead to for an eternity, but the game is tomorrow now. We're going to talk about it today. What an opportunity we've got. We can go 6 points clear with victory tomorrow and take a pretty sizeable next step towards 3 in a row. We will come on to the match very shortly and I'll try to avoid telling you how big a game it is about 10 times like I did on Wednesday's video. You probably know by now that it's a pretty sizeable clash. Something I want to cover before then. I think it's just one story today actually. Moritz Jenz, our former defender, has done an exclusive interview with Football Scotland. I just wanted to go through some of the things he's had to say, because I think it's fair to say he was a pretty liked player at Celtic. He was only here for 6 months, start of last season, first half of last season. I think he only played maybe like 20 odd times for us, but he always came across as quite a decent person, decent enough player as well, and always spoke highly of the club. He is now playing for Wolfsburg. You may call them Wolfsburg, but I'm an intellect, so I call them Wolfsburg. 12th in the Bundesliga. He's a pretty regular starter for them as well. So his career's gone pretty well since leaving Celtic. So as I say, he's done an interview with Football Scotland that was released on Thursday night. Spoke about a number of things in there, that frantic couple of days we had at the start of last season when we battered Rangers 4-0, one of the most complete performances I've ever seen from a Celtic team. 4-0 at Celtic Park, going on about 10. A couple of days later we welcomed the reigning European champions Real Madrid to Celtic Park. We lost that game 3-0 but had some very good moments and played very well, especially in that first half. So Jens spoke about both of them. He came on as a sub for the last half an hour for Karl Starfelt in the derby. Starfelt was injured, I believe, as well, so Jens actually started the game against Real Madrid. So good things to say about those days. And he then kind of fell out of favour around the end of 2022 and left the club a month or so later. Jens quoted as saying, "After the tour in Australia, I was drifting out of the 11. Karl came back and I was on loan. Karl and CCV were performing quite well together, so a winning team needs to play. That's normal." Starfelt was also a player of Celtic the previous season, so it was also important for him to play. There are many factors. I don't want to point the finger at anyone, but at the end it was the right decision for both parties and the gaffer gave me a nice speech. He said, "Don't think this time was a bad time. It was a great time." I said the same. I really enjoyed it. My career moved forward the way I wanted it to, so I'm very thankful to Ange for that. Jens also went on to say that he'd love to play for Celtic again in the future. I mean, he was very respectful to Wolfsburg, who are obviously his employers at the moment. But I think he said that his girlfriend or possibly even wife had basically kind of said to him, like, would you sign for Celtic again? It seems like they really enjoyed their life in Scotland, and he said he'd love to play for Celtic possibly at some point later in his career. So that may be one to watch out for in the years to come. I wonder if he'd be up for having a chat with us on the channel. That'd be good. Maybe I'll put some feelers out, although maybe we're not quite as big a name as someone like Football Scotland. But Jens, yeah, very likeable guy. And good to see him doing well and speaking positively of the club. I think we can just add him to the long list of players who weren't necessarily Celtic fans when they joined, but they now look out for the results, etc. I saw Fraser Forster doing an interview on Ben Foster's podcast recently, and he spoke about that. He said Celtic are still a team I look out for the results every single weekend. So yeah, great stuff. Just because we mentioned Ange Postecoglou there, I take it we all saw him going mad last night on the touchline at Stamford Bridge as Spurs went down to another defeat to Chelsea. Stop passing it back, he was yelling at some of his team. I hope Stephen Welsh wasn't watching that game. Might have brought pretty bad flashbacks. Right, on to tomorrow's game against Hearts, and what can we expect team-wise? Well, for ourselves, really only Daizen Maeda that we are waiting to find out about. As you know, he's seemingly made this miraculous recovery from an injury. We were expecting to keep him out for the rest of the season. I believe the feeling is that he might make the squad this weekend. Will he start or not? I'd say it'd be more likely he'd be on the bench, but I guess we'll find out more from Brendan Rodgers later in the day. I wonder if it's just going to be the same team that started at Dundee last weekend. That's certainly what I expect. And yeah, I mean, there's a few players in there that haven't been at their best in recent weeks. I think that's fine to say. As much as winning is the priority, Celtic can certainly play better, and a number of players there can play better. So hopefully being back at Celtic Park with all that's riding on the game will up our levels from the past couple of matches. With regards to Hearts, they've certainly got a few players who are definitely out. Peter Haring, Liam Boyce, Craig Halkett and Callum Neuenhoff all won't play. I believe they've all got long-term injuries. Midfielder Benny Beningame was taken off last weekend against Kilmarnock. He was feeling light-headed near half-time, so he wasn't expected to miss games as a result of that. But we'll wait and see whether he will play. He's a pretty good player, actually. Officials-wise, this is what we're looking at. The referee is Kevin Clancy, assisted by Daniel McFarlane and Chris Ray. Fourth official is Colin Stephen. On VAR is Nick Walsh, and the assistant VAR, Gary Hilland. Right, before I go, I want to bring in a good few of your comments from this week, just on different topics regarding tomorrow's match. First up, we've got Tim Billy saying, should change the name to The Stevie Show. Well, that's obviously not going to happen. We need to kind of keep Stevie there. We can't have him getting, too big for his boots or even bigger for his boots. I have, however, created a little playlist in the last few hours of all of the videos with Stevie, and I have named that The Stevie Show. So, Tim Billy, if that's even your real name, there you go. You've made Stevie very happy, I'm sure. So if you're a Stevie fan, you can check out that playlist. I don't know how useful the older videos would be, given that you'll probably be talking about matches that happened 2 and a bit months ago, but knock yourself out. David Red saying, yep, fans need to be the 12th man on Saturday. Place needs to be rocking. Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that Celtic Park will be jam-packed tomorrow. I mean, all the kind of factors you would normally look at that would kind of determine a crowd, the time of the season, it's the biggest, it's the end of the season where things matter a hell of a lot, so that'll obviously be the main factor that will, bring people out. The opposition, Hearts games are always well attended, and there's a score to settle there, clearly. It's a Saturday 3 p.m. kickoff, which is a huge factor as well. I mean, I remember a game against Hearts at this stage of the season a couple of years ago in Postecoglou's first season. I think we were 6 clear at that stage, and it was a game we won after going behind early on, and it basically secured the league title. It basically meant we weren't going to be caught, although not officially. And there were empty spots that day. If you watch the highlights back, there are empty spots. I think that was an early Saturday game from memory, 12 o'clock kickoff, 12:30. That can have a factor, I guess. And also the atmosphere can be a bit sleepy sometimes in those matches if it's not a derby. I think tomorrow, with it being 3 p.m, will be an absolute sellout. I would hope anyone with a ticket would be going along. And as I always say, if people can't make the game for whatever reason, what happens, give your ticket to someone else. It's a huge game tomorrow. God, I've just done it. And the bigger question, what's the atmosphere going to be like? I think it'll be very good at kickoff, and there's always an expectancy there with Celtic, especially when you're got the pressure of a title race there. I just hope that if it is sticky tomorrow, and hopefully it doesn't happen, but say Hearts go ahead, or even say it's goalless going into the final, half an hour, 20 minutes. Stick with the team, get behind the team. It's a collective effort. We're all in it together. and let's just get over the line by any means necessary tomorrow. And I'm saying right now, by the way, if we win tomorrow and play horrendously, I'm not even entertaining any chat of us being horrendous on Monday. It's all about the result tomorrow. I know that the performance aids the result, and I understand that completely. But I just think, support, get right behind the team tomorrow throughout the game, even if there's tough moments in the match. I remember a game against Hearts a couple of years ago, again, in that first Postecoglou season. Thursday night it was, from memory, and we won that 1-0, and there were some really tough moments in the second half. I remember Hearts missing a few really big chances. Stephen Kingsley, I think, missed a header from a corner or a free kick. Really good chance. Hearts were good that day. Or that night, and the support stuck with the team, and there was a feeling of us all fighting for the result, and I think the support really aided the team. I could see it being a similar game tomorrow, and I think we'll be up for it. And I just think if the support get right behind the team, it will only be positive for the side, and I think we've got a number of players there that will be up for the big occasion. So yeah, you just don't know with this Celtic team how they're going to play. I think as a support, that's the thing we can impact tomorrow. Get behind the team, regardless of how things are going early on. If we fall behind, if we're not playing particularly well, get behind the team, because tomorrow is all about the result. William McLaughlin, I'm really concerned about our midfield, which was so poor. Calmac is not match fit, neither is Rayo. Would you start with Iwata and Bernardo, or hope they both get back to match fitness and make a difference? This has been the main talking point, I would say, this week. Callum McGregor, should he play? Should Iwata come in for him? I think there's a genuine debate to be had there. I've not shied away from that this week. McGregor's not been at the level that we know since he's come back from his injury, all the way back to Ibrox, where it was his fault for the Rangers' second goal that day. Having said that, I would start him tomorrow in that midfield alongside Hatate and Matt O'Reilly. I think that's what Rodgers will do as well. I always just think as supporters, we don't really know. I know people have watched McGregor in recent weeks and said that he's not been at his level and are writing him off for the rest of the season and see Iwata get in there. And I understand why people do that. I also think we have to remember, the last time we played Hearts, Iwata had a pretty rotten game. And I like Iwata as well, but it's not like he's just a perfect, surefire option in there. For me, McGregor tomorrow, the medical team, Brendan Rodgers will know far more than we as fans do. So I just trust them to get it right. But I'm pretty sure McGregor will start. Unless he's had some sort of setback since Dundee, why would he be starting Aberdeen Cup semi, Dundee last week, and then suddenly not be in for Hearts? Stranger things have happened. I wouldn't be absolutely stunned to see Iwata in the team, but equally I'm pretty confident it will be McGregor, Hatate, O'Reilly in the midfield. Lachwinder Pal saying Hearts will fancy taking something from Paradise. We need to be fully focused and ready. No sloppiness. That's a big part of it for me tomorrow. You look back at Celtic this season and there have been plenty of sloppy performances. At Celtic Park especially, that you can remember a number of games, mainly earlier on in the season, where we just didn't get going and games kind of passed us by. And I don't know if it was the team were just coasting through matches or if they needed an edge that they couldn't quite find. There's obviously an edge there now, and there has been for a good couple of months, because we're really fighting now and have no real margin for error in terms of winning the league. You look back at the really big games this season, the derbies, and I compare tomorrow to a derby. I think it's a similar kind of build-up and atmosphere. You're obviously not playing Rangers, but I think it's a similar feeling. And generally in the derbies, there hasn't been that sloppiness. I know occasionally, like in the derby at New Year at Celtic Park, there was a few moments defensively we weren't great, and obviously later on at Ibrox we had let them back into the game. But I think generally we've been really switched on in these derbies, and as I say, that's what I expect tomorrow. I think this Celtic team will be raring to go. Brendan Rodgers was talking about the game literally from inside Dens Park last week after full time. He brought it up on his own accord. Hearts next week, I'm buzzing for it. If he's feeling like that, the players will be right up for it. And I think if we reach anywhere near our top level, we blow Hearts away tomorrow. I know Hearts have beaten us the last couple of times, but you look at those games, and the first one we were in a really dark place, booing Santa, etc. Some of the players that started and came on that day are have left the club or are nowhere near it at the moment. The second one, more recently, obviously refereeing decisions went against us, whether they were right or wrong. We were down to 10 men. It was an uphill battle that day. I think tomorrow's one Celtic will fancy at this stage of the season, and I just think the team will not have that sloppiness in their game. I can't say that for sure because, this season we have been inconsistent, but I just sense the team are ready to peak now. We've got AJSC Tech saying we can't slip up again because we might not get another chance to correct it if we do. But yes, it is a 2-game season now. Win the next 2 games and the last 2 games basically won't matter. Rangers would need us to lose both of our last 2 games, and that isn't going to happen. By contrast, Rangers can only really win the league by taking it to the last game, so they need 4 games. Let's finish it in 2 games and head to Ayrshire for a party. Yeah, there's obviously a lot of work still to be done. But equally, we're 2 games away from effectively having this thing tied up, and it's 2 games at Celtic Park in front of our own supporters. And I mean, that's an opportunity you would fancy every season if you're offered it. At the start of the campaign in August, you would take that. I think this season it's even more remarkable because there've been so many, frustrating matches and below par performances and negative things and chat at the club. It's pretty cool that we're in this position. We just can't afford to relinquish this great position we have at the moment. So it's a case of just doing the business. I mean, there's always a temptation to look forward to next week, but for me tomorrow is just a huge one. Just win tomorrow and it just ticks off another game. There's nothing they can do about it across the city. You move 6 points clear, and next week becomes a must-win for them. And there's always the outside chance of a wee bonus on this Sunday as well. So, yeah, it's a big old game for us, and the league is there to be won for this Celtic team, and it starts this Saturday. And to add a little bit of extra spice into it, it's against a Hearts team that we owe one to, given the way the last couple of matches have gone. They've been extremely frustrating. I expect the player and Brendan Rodgers doing media duties today to be asked about revenge multiple times, and I expect them to say no, it's not about that. But I hope there's just an extra incentive there tomorrow to remind Hearts that we're better than them, which, don't get me wrong, is a ridiculous statement for me to be saying. But go out there and win the game tomorrow. Put in the kind of performance that shows why we should be champions, and it'll be 6 points clear. And tomorrow night, we can all just rest and then look forward to the big one a week later. So, yeah, it's a huge match. I've actually got a bit of nerves already, which I wouldn't normally get, but it just I just really don't want Celtic to do anything daft tomorrow and to slip up. It's a decent team we're playing. And they've got a pretty good striker who take a chance if we give it to him, as we've seen already this season. So there's a bit of jeopardy tomorrow, and I think that's where the nerves come in. Wherever you're watching it around the world, try to enjoy it. I'll certainly be trying to do that. If you're going to the game, as I say, my message is to make as much noise and just get right behind the team as we go for a major 3 points. And I'll return on Monday, and who knows what position we'll be in at that stage. Yeah, speak to you then.